Welcome to IT Pro TV. I'm your host, Don.
Coming at you live from San Francisco, California.
You're watching IT Pro TV.
Hello, and thank you for watching IT Pro TV, helping you level up with IT learning everywhere you go. I'm your host, Zach Memis, for this episode of CompTIA Linux Plus. We're locating files. That's what we're doing. And the person who's helping us is the one and only Don Pizzette. Don, good to see you, sir.
Good to be here, Zach. And in this episode, we're going to find our way in the amazing mess of file systems inside of Linux. The file system can be really intimidating sometimes because there's so many strange files all over the place. So in this episode, we're going to look at a few tools that are available to help us find what we're looking for. So we don't necessarily have to memorize exactly where we need to be. We can just search, find it, jump right to it, and go. And you'll find there's a number of different utilities. We're going to take a look at a utility called Find, oddly enough. Locate is another one. We'll talk a little bit about grep and a few other utilities. So all that's coming up right here in this episode.
So, Don, what is your go-to method to find files?
All right. Well, there are two commands that I mentioned a moment ago, Find and Locate. And these are kind of my two go-to search utilities because they're both very old commands, very mature. They're present in most Linux distros. I will tell you that Find can be the more useful of the two. Let me explain kind of how they work. So what the Find utility does is we give it some parameters. We say, we're trying to find something. Can you just look around and see if you can find it for me, right? And it then does a massive directory listing of wherever we point it to, of all the files that are in there, and compares them to our parameters and gives them to us. Now that process can be fast. Like if I'm just searching my home directory, it's pretty quick, right? But if I'm searching the entire hard disk and I've got a 5 terabyte array or something like that, well, that can take a long time. So Find is not very fast, but it does show you the files as they exist on your disk right at that moment. Right? The Locate command's a little bit different. I've got a graphic that kind of shows you here. With Find, we're just searching the hard drive, scans the whole thing. But with Locate, what Locate does is it actually builds a database of the files that are on your hard drive. And so when you go to do a search, it's not actually going and parsing through all of those physical folders and finding the file names. It just goes right to its database and looks it up. That means that Locate is super fast. When you use the Locate command, you'll find things really, really quickly. On a negative side, though, it's all built around this database. And the database is not kept up to date second to second or even minute to minute. It's often an hour behind, sometimes as much as 24 hours behind. So if you're looking for a file that's been there a while, Locate is great. Right? But if I'm looking for a file that just got created, the odds are it's not in the Locate database. And I can do an update on the Locate database. I could force it, but that takes time. And usually by that point, I could have done a Find instead. So I use these two utilities, but I always think about the situation. If I'm trying to find something that's brand new, I need to use the Find command because Locate won't know about it. But if I know a file has been there at least 24 hours, I'll use Locate because it's faster. So they both have their place, and they're really useful for being able to reach out and find things. But for this episode, let's start with the Find command because that is probably the one, when I'm in a hurry, I need to find something, or if I'm searching a small directory, Find is just as fast as a database lookup. So it kind of becomes the go-to. So let me jump over here to my home directory. So this is my home directory. And I've got some files. We've been making a bit of mess in some of our episodes. So I've got a couple of files here. But one thing that we've been working with is our new Kermit the Frog manuscript.
Count Curcula.
Loosely based on Dracula.
Count Kermit.
So,
wait, it is Count Curcula. It kind of works.
We'll see.
Kermit, Dracula.
We're going to trademark that.
Curcula. Okay.
So if I want to try and find that file, though, I know the file name, right? The file is kermit.txt. So I can do a quick search to be able to go in and find that. So from any directory, you can run the Find command because it's one of our default installed commands. So we can run Find. And then I tell it what directory I want to search. Now, I want to search my home directory where I am right now. So I could type a tilde, which says search my home directory. Or I could type a dot, which says I want to search in the directory that I'm in right now. Or maybe I want to search some other directory like /var/logs. And so I can point it there and it'll search that directory instead. So you're telling it where to look. All right. If you want to search the entire disk, you would say find / and it's going to start at the root. Okay. Now I don't want to do that. And I'll show you why here in just a moment. But let's start with one that I know will work just fine. So I'm going to do a find. And I'll say dot because I want to search in this directory, my home directory. And then I'm going to say -name Kermit.txt. So I'm looking for files, and I can't remember if I capitalized the K or not. I don't think I did. It is case sensitive, so we've got to get that right. So I'm going to search with lowercase. So I'm telling it to search in my directory for files that are named. I did -name kermit.txt. And if I run that, it's going to search through my directory and the subdirectories, all the subdirectories, and it found in /documents/kermit.txt. There it is. And it's using the same notation I used in my search. If I had typed it all the way out, like if I searched /home/dpossett, like that, that's my actual home directory, then it would return it in that way too. If I got a little more broad, if I said, show me star.txt, so any file that ends in .txt, it would search across and, and shoot, I broke. I think I need to stick that in quote marks, and that should solve our problem. There's actually another way to do this using regular expressions, which is what it's complaining about, but there we go. I just needed to put the star.txt in quotes like that. And once I did that, now it's giving me a list of all the files in my home directory that end in .txt. And you'll see there's quite a few. So if you're looking for PDFs, right, or images, PNG, GIF, whatever it is that you're looking for, you can quickly search based on that using that file name. So pretty easy to reach out and find those. Now, I mentioned that I didn't want to search the entire hard drive. Let me go back to my search where I was looking for Kermit, right? And if I adjust that and I say, look, I want to search the entire hard drive, okay? I'm looking for kermit.txt. I can't remember where I put it. If I do that, there are a lot of files on the hard drive that I don't have permission to. And every time it goes to search a directory I don't have permission to, it's going to generate an error. So if I run this, what I'm going to start seeing is screen after screen of permission denied. And somewhere in here, it's going to find Kermit, right? But I don't know where, right? So somewhere in all this mess, it did find the Kermit file, but I've got a bunch of other ones that generated errors like that. Now, if I actually do need to search the entire hard drive and I don't want to deal with the errors, we can redirect those errors. You know, what we're seeing on our screen is what's called our standard output, or STD out. You also have your standard input, STD in, that's me typing. And then you have a null output where you can throw text away. So it's a little more complex, which is why I don't like to do this. But you can take that command and you can redirect its output by saying to greater than. That says take the errors and send them somewhere else, right? To greater than. And I'm going to redirect them to /dev/null. That's a device, I call it the bit bucket. Anything that goes to /dev/null gets thrown away. So I'm saying take any errors and throw them away. Anything else goes to standard out. Let me see it on the screen. And when I run that, now it found kermit.txt. It searched the entire hard drive, and I didn't get flooded with errors, and I see it there. And you might say, well, couldn't I just sudo this? Which that's a lot of authority to give for a search for a Kermit file. But even if you sudo it, there are files like some of the process directories that a super user doesn't have access to that are controlled by the kernel. And in those scenarios, you'll still get errors. So this is a little more complex. If you can limit the directory search to directories that you have permissions on, you don't have to worry about the errors. But if you're searching the entire thing, just remember this alias here of to greater than /dev/null, which just says throw away the errors, give me the rest of the good input or output.
Can you search by something other than a file name, Don?
Yeah, sometimes it's not the file name that we're looking for. Sometimes it's some characteristic of the file, like when the file was edited last, when it was created, who owns it, what the permissions on the file are. Find can actually search based on all of those, and some of them are more useful than others. For example, like searching based on permissions. Maybe I'm worried that there are binaries on my computer that are executable, but also have write permissions on it. And so I don't want people writing and then being able to execute this thing. So maybe I want to look for that. I could do a find and specify a directory like /usr/bin if I wanted. And then instead of doing -name, I could say -perm to search for permissions. And then I could say, if I'm looking for ones that have read or write or execute, I could say +r, +x, or +rwx. Maybe I'm looking for the whole thing, right? If I'm looking for ones that don't have certain permissions, I could say find files, -x. Show me all the files that don't have the executable permission set, right? So we're searching based on permission. I really rarely use that. There's a couple audit things that I do that might use that, But more commonly, I'm looking for other things like, let's say you're running out of space on your hard drive, right? I think I showed in another episode that you can run df-h and it'll show you your disks and you can see if you're running out of space. So as I look at a disk, maybe I see, like here, my boot volume is 20% full. Okay, well, what's eating up all that space? That's not really a lot, but maybe I want to find out. I could search for files over a certain size, right? Show me all the files that are over 5 megabytes in size. That's a little more useful. I could do find, and I'll search my root. I'm just going to go straight to the root, find every file on my hard drive, and then I'll do a dash size, and then I can specify the size. And you can use size abbreviations. So for example, if I'm looking for megabytes, I could say size 5M. All right. So I'm looking for files that are size 5 megabyte or larger. I can also do this based on characters. So if you do like 5C, if I'm looking for ones with 5 characters, not as useful, but I want to do megabytes, so 5M. And when I run that, or actually, hang on, that's going to look for files that are exactly 5. I'm going to do plus 5M to say bigger than 5. And when I run that, it's going to start looking, oh, shoot. Forgot to redirect my errors. Let me hit Control C there, and I'm going to do a 2 greater than /dev/ null. There we go. And now it's looking, and it's finding all these files that are over 5 megabytes in size, and so I can get an idea of what is it that's filling up my hard drive. 5 megabytes is not anything. In real life land, I'd probably do like a gigabyte. Find me any file that's over a gigabyte in size and return that. We can search based on group ownership or user ownership. Who owns that file. I know the files in my home directory are owned by me. If I do an ls-la, I've got dpossett attached to all of them. But maybe I want to find if I have files somewhere else on the hard drive. So I could come in and do a find and search the root. And I could then tell it -user dpossett. So show me every file owned by dpossett. Or if I don't know the username, I could use a user ID instead. I could do -uid followed by whatever that ID happens to be. I don't know mine. You can use the ID command to find out what your ID is, or you can look in /etc/passwd and find it there too. So those are all different types of searches. If you pull up the help documentation for find, you can look in there and they kind of lay out all the different options that you have to search based on. And there's a lot of stuff in there. I just kind of highlighted some of the more common ones.
And can we limit the number of subdirectories it searches?
Yeah, that's useful sometimes. Maybe I'm searching in my root and I don't want to go too far down a rabbit hole, right, into all the different subdirectories that are there. So I could do a search and limit it to 1 or 2 folders deep. And that's pretty easy by using the max depth option. So if I do, here, let me pull up that search for Kermit in my home directory. Or let's see, that was just kermit.txt. There, okay. I did this find, and I did it in my home directory, and it found Kermit inside of the documents folder. If I were to copy that Kermit file and copy it into my, let's send it into one of the subdirectories that are under there. I think there's a dir1, if I remember right. Apparently there is not, so let me get in there and move this thing in the right spot. I have created a duplicate file, so let me just make a directory called dir1. I'm going to copy Kermit into that directory. So now I've got 2 of them. So when I run that search, it will search and find 2 copies. If I pull up the right command, there we go. That was painful. All right, so I've got these 2 Kermit files. Now, it found one right there in documents. It found the other one in /documents/dir1, so 2 directories deep. If I add on to that, in addition to -name, I could add -max depth, and then how many folders deep I wanted to go. Maybe I only want to go 1 folder deep. And by doing that, it doesn't find anything because I'm just in that 1 folder. But if I step up another folder and go 2, now it finds the one that's in the documents folder. And if I go a step further and go 3, it'll find all or both of the files that are there. So you can control how many subfolders deep it goes, which is pretty useful sometimes.
Are there any other tools we could use to look for files?
Yeah, I mentioned the locate command. Locate's even easier because with locate, you've got a database. So you don't really have to specify a directory to go and search. You just say locate and whatever file name you're looking for. So if I had done locate kermit.txt. So when we run that, just locate space kermit.txt. I can run it, and there it goes. It found it, /home/dpossess/documents/kermit.txt. Now, you'll notice what I mentioned at the beginning of the show. If I just created a file, I just created kermit.txt inside of /document/dir1, that didn't come back. Locate doesn't know about it yet. It hasn't refreshed its database. But the original Kermit, we created that a couple episodes ago. So that one's been sitting there a while. Locate knows about it. It returns back, and I get the information. So Locate is fast, right? I mean, it ran really quick. It found the file, and I got it back. That's great. It was easy to use, but it's not up to date. And so when you're looking for something that was recently created, Locate's not as good.
So, Don, we've been searching for files. Can we search for commands as well?
Yeah, commands are really just files, although a lot of times we don't know where they are because they might be in /bin/sbin/usr/bin/usr/sbin. It's all over the place. But there actually are some other ways to search for commands that make that a little bit easier. So let me just show you an example. On my system, there's a ton of commands, right? I could run IP ADDR to pull up my IP addresses. I just use the IP command. Where did it come from? Well, the system obviously knows where it came from because it ran the command for me, or the ls command that I keep typing. Where does it find that? So it has to keep track of where those commands are, and it does it by tracking a file path. Well, we can actually search using a neat command called where is. I can say, where is this command? And it will tell me because the system already knows. The system doesn't already know about Kermit. It doesn't care about my Kermit.txt file, right? But it does care about commands that I might run. So if I do a where is ls, it's going to tell me where it is. Or if I do a where is IP, it's going to tell me where it is. And not just where the binary executable is, but also where the help documentation is. So looking at this, I can see right down here that /usr/bin/ls is where the ls command is, /usr/sbin/ip is where the IP command is. Two different places, right? I did not know that prior to running those commands right now. So, sometimes you just don't know where the actual commands are. And then we see the help documentation and where we can find that. IP actually has two different help documentations. LS just has one, although it's got a secondary entry, but it's not a true secondary. Well, anyhow, point is, it shows me where the information is. So where is a really handy way to do that and quickly locate those commands. Similar to that is the which command, WHICH. With where is, if you have more than one copy of a command, it will show you all the locations of that command. We don't normally do that. We don't normally have more than one binary for a command somewhere. But if you did, where is will show them. Which, on the other hand, will just show you the first one. And that's the one that you're going to run. Because I might have 5 copies of LS, but it's only the first one that's found that's actually going to execute. The other 4 will never get used unless I specifically call them. So if I do which ls, and I had more than one, it's going to tell me exactly which one. And in my case, it actually reveals that it is /user/bin/ls, but it also shows me that I have an alias. That when I run ls, I'm not just running ls. I'm running ls -- color equals auto because that's been aliased in the system for me. So that's really handy. If I do which IP, there's no alias there. So it just says /usr/sbin/ip. I've got one copy of it. That's what's going to be called, and that's the one that's going to come up. This is also handy to find out when binaries have been mapped somewhere else, which happens a lot of times with Vi. So if I do a which Vi, I can see that Vi has actually been mapped to Vim. And this is on a CentOS box. On an Ubuntu box, if I did this, I would see that it was actually mapped to Nano instead. So you run Vi, and it's actually running a completely different editor because Nano is their default editor in their system. So easy way to be able to figure that out, just use the which command, and it'll turn up right there.
What if none of those commands finds a file that I'm looking for?
Well, there's a couple of possibilities. One, you might not actually know the command name, so that might be wrong. Or it's possible that what you're typing might not actually be a command. There are certain things that are built into the bash shell, for example. So it's not a separate binary stored somewhere. It's just a native function of the bash shell. And in those cases, they're not files. So they won't turn up. You'll never find them. If you suspect that's what you're running into, you can use the type command. The type command tells you what type of executable or what type of of function a command happens to be, and it shows you how that command will be interpreted by the bash shell. So if I do type IP, right? We know the IP is a command /user /usr /sbin /IP. We saw it earlier. So if I run that, it says IP is hashed, and that's how it knows where to find it, and here's where it'll find it. That's a command, okay? If I were to take, for example, cat, which cat, all right? /usr /bin /cat, which ls we already saw. Each of those are really just files that it knows on the hard drive. But if I do a type for cat or type for ls, right, they're all going to come back and return what they are, except notice ls, it doesn't actually show me where the binary is. It just shows me that it's been aliased, right? So it identifies that alias does exist and shows me where that can be found. So if you're running a command, and I'm trying to think of one offhand, and I'm having a hard time thinking of one that is not an actual binary that we use. Is echo? Hang on, let's try echo. That might be one. There we go. I lucked out. All right. So the echo command, if I do echo hello world, which I've managed to spell wrong, the easiest program in the world, and I've got an error. There we go. I can echo that out, and it didn't escape out my exclamation point. I've really botched this one. Let me just do that. No explanations there. I've echoed hello world, right? So echo must be a command. If I do which echo /usr /bin /echo, all right, so there is a binary. That's interesting. Well, bash doesn't need a binary to do echoes, though. And so when I do type echo, I can see the echo is a shell built in. It's not using that binary. It's built into the shell. So if you can't find a binary, it may be that it's built in, and which will reveal that. The last way, if I go through all this stuff and I can't find what I'm looking for, I go to the grep command. Now, grep is a way to search using regular expressions. It's more complex. It's not as easy, and so it's not as user-friendly. Using find is way easier when you're searching for file names. But grep actually gives you the power to search inside of a file, not just the file name itself, right? So you actually go in and look at the data inside of it, and that's really, really powerful. So I want to spend some time on that, but not in this episode. We're going to cover grep separately in another episode, but that would be my last stage. If I absolutely can't find a file, you can do a grep-r, which is a recursive grep, and you can search across your hard drive that way and hopefully find what you're looking for. So all sorts of different options there to look and locate data on our hard drive.
Well, thank you, Don Cliffhanger Pizzette. Locating files, another great episode. And before we move on, besides what you're not going to say now, what else would you like to say?
All these tools, I think I've said this in other episodes, there's no right or wrong tool. Some are more effective at doing a job than another, but you need to be familiar with all of them for the exam. In real life land, you'll kind of settle into the ones that you want. I'll be honest with you, I rarely use the locate command. I usually use the find command because I need up-to-date information, but I still know the locate command because it pops up from time to time. So hopefully you do the same, and that way you're prepared on the exam.
Great advice, Don. As usual, thank you. CompTIA Linux Plus is a wonderful series. Here's more advice. Watch every episode. Take notes. Do extra studying. Look at our course library where you will find supplementary information that will help you do one thing, help you go even further. So check it out. And tell everybody you know about IT Pro TV. IT Pro TV is binge-worthy. Thanks for watching. I'm Zach Memis.
And I'm Don Pizzette.
We will see you again soon.
Thank you for watching IT Pro TV.